it's me Michaela and welcome back to my channel. It's been a few weeks, but I am back with a video and today we are going to be discussing my April reading wrap up. Let's get into it. So first up, let's talk about my stats for the month. So in April, I did only read 5 books. And this is because I became fully employed in April, so I was spending a lot less time reading, which is good because we like being paid, and bad because less reading time. But that's how it works. I'm an adult now, so there we go. So of these books, I owned one of them and 4 of them were loaned. The one that I owned was a physical copy of a book and the other 4 were digital loans through Libby. I had 1 reread this month and 4 books that were new to me. My average star rating for the month was a 4.05, which is pretty high. I did have pretty enjoyable month, but also I'm starting to learn through doing this that I think I just tend to give books really good ratings. Either that or I am like exceptional at curating my TBR. So total pages read in the month of April was 2,040 pages with an average book length of 408 pages. So I did read some larger books in April. So that also probably counts towards why I only read 5 and not more. And my average pages per day in April was about 68, which is not too bad for also working. I tend to read a lot more on the weekends. I usually spend at least one day of the weekend where almost all I do is reading because it's kind of like my fun little reading day. I have no responsibilities, my total day of relaxation, and then the other day on the weekend I have to do stuff like chores and stuff. But anyway, you don't care about my life that much. Let's just talk about books. So the first book that I read in April was Undercover Bromance by Lyssa K. Adams. This is the second book in the Bromance book club. I did start this series, at the end of February, I believe, going into March. I think I finished it just kind of on the cusp of the month. And I gave this one 4 stars. I think in general, I like this one more than the previous one because I didn't hate the action of the characters all the time. Also, there was a very large co-plot to the romance, which I liked. Like the main characters were kind of on like a mission throughout it while also falling in love. So I enjoyed that because I tend to like when there's other things of importance going on plot-wise in romances that I read. Quite happy with that second book. I was a little worried about it going in because it is focusing with the heroine in it is the sister of the heroine in the first one. And in the first book, I didn't really like her, so I was like, oh god, am I gonna like her when she's like the point of view character? But I actually did. I didn't hate it. I actually liked it because I gave it 4 stars. So I keep like touching my hair because I accidentally put like way too much gel in it this morning and it is like rock hard. Anyway, next up on the reading list is Eragon. This was my reread for the month. I did have this on my spring TBR along with Eldest, which is the second book in this series. This is the Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. Eragon is the first book. I read this for the first time, I think, 6-7 months ago, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I totally forgot everything I read. Well, not everything. As I was reading it, I remembered it all, but I was like thinking about the book and I was trying to recall what happened, could not recall. So I wanted to reread this book before I started reading further on into the series since I had only read the first book before now. So now that I've read this, I'm going to be moving on to Eldest soon, probably sometime in May. It is also on my spring TBR, so I probably should get it to sometime in May because otherwise it's not really going to be spring anymore. But that's the plan. This, on first read, I gave it a 3.25 stars, and I'm going to be keeping that 3.25 stars. I think that it is a good book, but not a great book. I do like the overall story and the plot. I really like Saphira the dragon as a character. I do think, however, that it did not need to be this long. I think there's quite a bit of repetition and unnecessary scenes in it that come up, but I didn't hate reading it. It's just that at some points it starts getting a little boring. But when things are like happening, I'm having like a good time for a YA book that was written by someone who was a young adult at the time. I had a good time with the book. I don't think there's anything overly wrong with it. Like, going into it, I was kind of like worried because I thought there's like a lot of people who like really dislike this series and think very negatively on it. So I was like, oh no, is it really bad? But it's really not. It's not amazing, it's not great, but I also don't think it's bad. Sometimes the vocabulary used by Christopher Paolini in this book is a little like, I went to a thesaurus, I can never say that word. I went to a thesaurus and found the most fancy version of a word to mean this other word that would have just made perfect sense in this, and now I sound smart, if that makes sense. Like, it kind of gives me that vibe sometimes. But also, I'm like not gonna hate on a book that was written by somebody when they like were like 16, you know? When I was 16, I couldn't write a book, so I'm not gonna rate it like you wrote it when you're like 30, okay? I'm just not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. So the third book that I read this month was Lost in a Moment and Found by Seanan McGuire. This is the 8th and the newest addition to the Wayward Children series, and I absolutely loved this book. There is a author's note at the beginning of this to warn of gaslighting children and child abuse, so note that it is in the book. I think that the way it is handled by Seanan McGuire is done very gracefully and beautifully, and the symbolism in this book for the loss of youth is so gorgeous. I loved it. There's so much that you can read into in this book, but you also can just read Anstey's story and appreciate it for what it is without reading into all of the context like written inside of it, if that makes sense. I don't really know if I'm making sense. It was a great book, one of my favorite in the series, and I think it might be the only backstory Wayward Children story that I have given 5 stars. There we have it. Also, now I'm up to date on the Wayward Children series. We love. I get to tick that one off my currently reading series list, okay? Because that is the overarching goal of the year, is just to like get my currently reading series number under control. That is the goal. That is the plan. I don't want to be that person who has way too many series on their hands because I get too easily overwhelmed. So the next and the 4th book I read in April was The Lost Hero by Riordan, which is the first in his Heroes of Olympus series. I gave this 4 stars, so I also liked it. This is a young adult series that is in the same world and comes after the Percy Jackson series, which is a middle grade series. So you're following new characters in this, but you're in the same setting as some of the old characters from Percy, or not old characters, but familiar characters from Percy Jackson are also in this. It's like a new story with connection to the old story. I really liked the different POVs. I was happy that there was 3 of them. It made sense. It made it more compelling because you got to see also what each of the POV characters might be withholding from the other POV characters inside and what's going on in their heads. You got to learn more about the story that way. I felt like the overarching like kind of reveal was very obvious, but I also think it was made to be very easily guessable. There was some pretty obvious hints. I think if you're someone who's not familiar with the mythology it's based around, then perhaps you'll be more surprised. But I really think it's also written for the younger age bracket inside young adult, so I don't think it's meant to be too difficult. I don't think it's meant to be a big shocking reveal, but it is fun to kind of read along and know what's happening when the characters don't. Let's be honest, we like to feel smart. I like to feel smart. Even when I'm reading books for children, I like to feel smart. Yeah, okay, so there we go. I had a good time with that book. Oh wow, the sun is out. Hi, hello there. I'm gonna turn into a Squinty McGee now. Okay, so the last book that I read in April was Act Your Age, Eve Brown, which is the 3rd and final book in the Brown Sisters series by Talia Hibbert, and I also gave this, can we get 4 stars. I am just like a 4-star girly. I'm giving 4 stars out like it's nobody's business. I love to give a 4-star to a book, apparently. But I did. I liked this book. Again, we had a concept for a romance where there is a very solid co-plot to go along with the romance plot. There were some things in here that I didn't like. Specifically, we had what felt like too late and unnecessary third act conflict, because there was like a previous conflict that I thought was the conflict, but turned out it wasn't the conflict, and then the conflict was resolved so easily and so quickly that I was like, why did we even have this here? Why was this in the book? So I kind of like didn't like that, so the ending kind of like brought it down for me, which is disappointing because you want a good ending. But up until that, I was liking it for the most part, and I did like it overall. So 4 stars. And that was my whole month. It was a very quick month of reading. Honestly, April flew by. I don't know where it went, but we had a good time. So no complaints really over here. I'm gonna end the video here before the sun literally blinds me. I have no idea how this last part of the video is gonna turn out because of how drastically the lighting changed all of a sudden. So if you like the video, give it a like, thumbs it up, support me. Also, if you happen to like me, consider subscribing. I'd be happy to have you. Comment down below if you've read any of these books and your thoughts on them, or let me know what your favorite read in April was. And I will see you in the next one. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Bye-bye!